Wonder Woman 1984 was among several blockbuster films scheduled for release in early 2020. However, it ended up delayed due to low theater attendance. Over the last few weeks, its parent studio, Warner Brothers, announced that not only would it be releasing Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas Day via theaters and HBO Max, but it would do the same thing for its entire slate of 2021 releases. So starting on December 25th, you can see movies like The Matrix 4, The Suicide Squad, and Space Jam: A New Legacy in your local cinema, as well as from the comfort of your own home. This struck us as a real game changer for the movie-going experience and worthy of discussion. Will other studios like Universal and Disney soon follow suit with the Warner Brothers model? Will megaplex theater chains like AMC and Regal become relics of the past? And ultimately, what does a move like this mean for the kinds of films filmmakers can and want to make in the future? As always, thanks for listening, and for more episodes, don't forget to subscribe to SiDEBARforever.com or wherever you get your podcast.
Good morning, Dr. Silberman. How's the knee?
Did you just have a brain fart?
I know Taekwondo.
Stop eating my sesame cake!
You're killing me, Smalls.
Fuck with me, and we'll see who shits on the sidewalk.
Come quietly, or there will be trouble.
Clearly, I wasn't talking to you, big titties. You cherub-looking motherfucker.
While you were still learning how to spell your name, I was being trained to conquer galaxies.
The real question is, what are those?
On November 18th of this year, Warner Brothers announced that they were going to release, on Christmas Day, Wonder Woman 1984, but it's going to be released in theaters and via HBO Max. And about 2 weeks later, on December 3rd, they announced, and this was the bigger bombshell, that their entire slate of 2021 movies were all going to be released in theaters and on HBO Max. Now, these new films will be on HBO Max for a total of a month, and then they'll be pulled. You can still see them in theaters, but they'll be available to you, you know, on the app. So basically, you know, however many movies it is, a dozen, 14 of them, whatever, it's like a new movie every month on HBO Max. A new feature film with a, you know, big name stars, you know, just all the trimmings and all the extra. Some of the movies include The Matrix 4. Right? I'm still like, did someone request that? Anyway. Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which is probably the most anticipated movie of 2021. Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical adaptation In the Heights. The Sopranos prequel, The Many Saints of Newark. The Suicide Squad sequel. Denzel Washington's new movie In Little Thing, or the Little Things. Judas and the Black Messiah, a remake of Tom and Jerry. Don't ask me. Godzilla versus Kong. I guess there's a feature film version of Mortal Kombat coming. Angelina Jolie has a movie coming out called Those Who Wish Me Dead. The Conjuring, one of the Conjuring sequels. Space Jam: A New Legacy featuring LeBron James.
Woohoo! So we're waiting for that one.
Right. With bated breath. Reminiscence, Hugh Jackman's new movie, James Wan's Malignant, and Will Smith's movie about Richard Williams called King Richard.
Okay.
So all these movies will be available via HBO Max as well as in theaters when they get released. Like I said, after a month, they get pulled. And so this was a huge announcement because, one, it affects, you know, the theaters who are already suffering in the midst of the pandemic and not having enough butts and seats. But also, too, you know, people are wondering, is this going to set off a chain event where other studios, may follow suit. Is Universal going to do the same thing? Is Disney going to potentially do the same thing?
Right.
What could be the chain reaction? So I want to start with you, Adrian. Like, what were your thoughts when you first heard these announcements? And then what were your thoughts after you did a little bit of reading and digging, and kind of saw the scope and the expanse of what had been announced by Warner Brothers?
Man, if I can just be honest, I shrugged. I'm not saying that to be like I said earlier, to be an old fuddy-duddy or anything like that, but it just really feels more like desperation rather than innovation. You know what I'm saying? Like, just in terms of, all right, we have this situation now, with the pandemic, and now it's almost training people to watch this stuff at home. I mean, who really wants to see? Okay, here's the trade-off I can see happening. All right, on one hand, you get a highly anticipated movie like Dune coming out. Okay, that's something that everyone has been looking forward to. Yeah, exactly. But the first time you see it is on like the small screen, and even if this pandemic situation improves to where, theaters are a viable option for people to come back to, I think people would still be like, well, I already saw it now. Why do I need to go to the theater? Even if it is a big movie with these big effects that probably would play better, me seeing it on the silver screen, but I already saw it. So why do I need to see it again? You know what I mean? And the other thing, too, is it's just, I'm just, myself personally, just speaking for myself, just frustrated with, all these pay screens and the streaming. You can't watch this. You can only see it on this proprietary streaming service from this studio and everything. And man, it's mad frustrating, yo. So when the announcement came out about them releasing all of their whole slate of new movies for next year, day and date, so to speak, in the theaters, but also on HBO Max, it's just like, the long-reaching consequence of that is, to me, I just feel like it's just training people to just stay at home and watch the stuff. What incentive would you have to go to the theater after that? Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from.
I mean, I respect it. I think you're right in a lot of aspects. I think for me, there's two things going on there that I will try to elucidate a little bit. Firstly, we're communal beings, right? So as soon as we can get out as soon as we can get out there and do something together, we're going to do something together. So that means for me, even though I may see Dune in advance on television on my 19-inch, 20-inch screen with limited sound quality, I will still go to the theater and watch it again if it's good enough for a second viewing with my friends, just to have that situation, get together and do stuff. As far as training people to do it goes, in a world where, I'm sorry, I should stop doing that.
In a world,
can't help it. In a world where people are already like pirating things, like 3 weeks after or a week after it's been shown in a European environment, and you're getting it on torrent anyway, they're already losing money. So I say, why not capture some of that audience and keep it in house as much as possible for the moment you have access to it that is solely yours before it gets out of your hands. I think, the paid barrier is a nuisance. It really is. And like I swore I'll never do before, I've actually adapted to that environment based on certain things I like. But as soon as one goes south, it starts going sour, I will cut you off. But the beauty of like the strangers of this world now, how things are, everybody's big fish eat little fish. One company is acquiring another company, and how this company has exclusive rights for a period of time, like Swain said, for a month to the new movies. Is, if you have AT&T, you're set. I mean, you you watch the movie when it first comes out. You know, if your bandwidth is good enough and you have access to it, providing the servers don't go down, to be able to reach the maximum audience that it should be able to get. I could watch a lot of stuff I would have seen in the movie theater for free. So I would rather see it in the movie theater because I'm trained to that as an old head, like you would say. But I have no problem with watching it on demand when it comes out. I'll be one of the first ones to do it. Now, here's the thing. If they were to attach a premium price to it, I might be a little more sketchy, like Mulan. First off, that wasn't my wheelhouse in the first place. I didn't watch it when it first came out. I was not that desperate in a place to watch a cartoon become a live-action movie.
Right.
And that wasn't for me. So, I didn't see it. Not when it comes to Disney Plus for free sometime this month, I probably won't watch it either because it's not in my wheelhouse. So I guess if the anticipation were good enough, like a good example of something I might pay for on Disney Plus is Black Widow. I might do that. If they were to make it a decent price, which they don't seem to be doing right now, like their go-to price seems to be like $15 to $20, which is kind of close to what it costs for one individual anyway in some instances. Maybe, but I'm sorry. I mean, that's not meandering too much. That's basically how I feel about it. I mean, I think that as technology changes and opportunities for companies to change with it, they're going to do it, man, and they're trying to get ahead of this thing that we've been dealing with for the past year and a half, man. This pandemic situation has been a year and a half, not quite. Past year, it seems longer than what it is, and I get it, So I won't stop going to the movie theater ever, but I won't be going in the next 6 months. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Sure.
That's so if they want to make that money and try to clear out their stable, so to speak, to get things ready for the next batch of movies they're producing, I'm there for that.
I think as far as the premium prices goes, I mean, it seems like if they were hovering more around like $5 or $6 to see a movie like some of the ones that I mentioned earlier,
right?
Then that would be a more acceptable price to the average person. But yeah, I mean, $30 or $20 or treating it like it's like a heavyweight fight. We $49 and you get 20 people over your house. It's just
right.
That's just not.
Yes,
that's just it's outrageous.
Exactly. I mean, or like it's something that you could actually tangible put your hands on, like a DVD collectible. Like you're taking it home with you, and it's in your bookcase, and you have the back matter go on with it to support it. It's not. That's where that price comes in for me. Like if you give me a DVD with some kind of like accessories behind the scenes type thing that we all like to watch, then then charge that price. But you're not giving me that. You give me just the bare bones movie, I think.
Yeah. But I think, like you said, younger people and people who are less attached to physical media, they don't really care about that stuff. I mean, to some extent, they don't even really care about the extras. They just want to see the movie, watch the television show, and kind of be done with it. And I think Adrian's right. I mean, to some extent, it is, I think, dually desperation and it's innovation. One, I think it's desperation because, they, at the behest of Christopher Nolan, and I'm going to read a little bit about what he had to say based on the recent Warner Brothers announcement. He was not happy. But he pressed Warner Brothers to go ahead and release Tenet in theaters, maybe based on ego, maybe based on many other things, thinking that it was going to perform, and it didn't. So Warner Brothers is thinking, they've got hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, billions probably, loaded into these movies, and they want to make some of that money back.
Right.
And the idea is, to me, is as innovation goes, people are already consuming media this way.
Right.
Why continue to resist it? Why continue to push against it? One, and then in terms of innovation and desperation. The other thing too is going to the theaters is something that people have been doing for over 100 years. But why?
Because they have no choice, right?
Right.
And also because of the spectacle of the thing. Like there are certain that's another point I want to bring up. Like there are certain movies that like your dramas and stuff like that. Those are fine for the small screen, regardless of wherever you see it at. But when you have something that has taken months or even years to bring to fruition, as far as like these big budget blockbuster effects driven movies, you kind of want to get the full effect by seeing it on a large screen. You know what I mean? And so people have endured that, so to speak, because it's the spectacle of the thing. It's not just the spectacle of the thing, it's the whole movie going experience too. Again, I just think people now within the last decade have really been trained to, move away from that. Why waste the gas? Why pay the high ass, food prices when you can see that stuff at home? Right. But it's something about the spectacle of it.
Let me interject, Adrian. I don't think they've moved away from it. It's just they've accepted these other alternatives. I mean, the box offices are doing as well now as they ever have. So there isn't any diminishing returns in terms of people spending their money to go to the theater. It's just they're also consuming these other things. I think the other part of it too is you say that about the spectacle, but that's because again, it was the only way you could see the spectacle. Now people have giant televisions and sound systems and sound bars, and they have aspect ratios on their TVs at homes and high def. So you can very much mimic the experience of the theater. I think more than anything else is studios were in partnership with the exhibitors, with the theater owners. And so they were only selling us this one way to see it initially. That was just the only way they were willing to sell it to us because they had a partnership. Now that the pandemic has come along, now that people are a little unsure and a little, hesitant to get into that communal experience of going in a theater and and laughing and joking and spraying partlets in the air and sharing each other's spit and germs, which is another thing that we have to consider.
Yeah, swapping spit.
Now that we know more about how unsafe and how much we have to share with each other and how much spit we're swapping in those communal experiences, are people going to, just as a matter of general safety for the future, because if a pandemic can happen one time, it can happen again.
For sure.
Where people are going to say, I don't know if that's for me anymore. Again, especially if it's affordable and you can still get a good bit of that from these new models.
Yeah. I mean, it's a paradigm shift, man. Let's not get it twisted. It is. I mean, this is where we're looking at now. We're looking at a brand new delivery system, which is acceptable to everybody. We're looking at people that have been trained to do it for years. We're looking at people that don't care about as much about movies as the three of us do, and probably some of our listeners and other people that we've grown up with. So it's just mindless entertainment to them. So they don't care about the damn story. I mean, look at Fast and the Furious is proof of that shit. I mean, it's a spectacle. I mean, how fast can Dom go? Will Dom's eyebrows go up? Will old girl get plugged by Dom? Will Dom jump off a roof? I'm a black Superman. Can we turn that into a movie too? Can we do this, that, and the third? So it's a thing wherein, as the visual becomes the foremost thing in terms of the story, the story itself, the intellectual process of it is not really a factor.
Takes a back seat. Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you could almost compare it to, we used to ride our bikes and run and play in the neighborhood and play football and basketball and do all this kind of stuff. And we're like, okay, that's real entertainment for kids. That's what kids should be doing. Well, that's all we could do.
Right.
Now, Adrian, I'm sure you can attest, your daughters, my daughters, their faces are glued to their phones. My daughter hardly ever, even before the pandemic, not hardly ever, but like for her to hook up with her friends, it was an event. And it happened maybe once or twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. But she didn't have any I go over somebody's house and hang out all day and all night like we used to do. They don't do that.
Right.
That as an experience for them is gone. Same thing. She doesn't really love movies in the way that I loved movies and that we all loved movies when we were kids. She just doesn't. She doesn't have a connection to it in that way. It's something to consume and to enjoy, but she doesn't relate or, connect to the experience of it. But I want to throw a few more things out there. Apparently, Warner Brothers gave Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins like $10 million to buy them out of their back-end deals because this is going to affect the money that they make, in residuals.
Wow.
So I'm wondering now if that's the case, because back-end deals, and Gal Gadot didn't make a lot of money for Wonder Woman. I think she only made like $500,000
right.
for the first Wonder Woman. So this was going to be a big payday for her.
Right.
And deservedly so. So does this change in a way? Do we think it's going to change the configuration of back-end deals? Splitting it between, streaming money and theater money. And then also, if it's going to change who wants to work on what and for how long. In other words, is this going to affect the kinds of movies? Because it's going to affect the budgets. We know that. Studios are going to spend less money promoting a movie. And if this becomes the new norm, they don't have to split any of those profits with the exhibitors.
Right.
So I wonder now if that's going to change the budgets. If that changed the budgets, one of the reasons why the adult thriller went away from feature films is because the adult thrillers could be found on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and places like that. So studios, big studios like Universal and Disney and Warner Brothers, they focused on big budget blockbuster movies. Let's just make the big nut and let's let the other streaming services have the little nuts. Well, now as Warner Brothers sends their entire 2021 slate of movies to HBO Max, now they're competing with Netflix, straight up.
Yeah.
With Amazon Prime, with Hulu. So now I wonder if we're going to start to see a different kind of movie. This could be the good thing, is that we see movies that adults used to like that they can't find from those big studios starting to return to those big studios because they say, okay, we can't make $1 billion anymore. Now we have to focus on spending $50 million and maybe making $300 million or $150 million, but we're not going to make $1 billion anymore. And that could be reality. It probably won't, but it could be.
Something to think about is that, as you were explaining that, Swizz, I was thinking about like the old studio system, and I'm not intimating that, this is going to harken back or go back to that, but just in terms of when you look at the slate of movies that were coming out from the studios back then, you would see like top billed actors, be in just a multitude of movies. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to act in one movie a year. It would be like, no, Betty Davis would be in 4 or 5 movies in 1 year of varying degrees. You would have like a thriller. You would have a romantic screwball comedy. You would have her in like this romance, type of historical romance, movie. So I definitely agree that the budgets for the movies would definitely be reduced, because you don't have the tent pole, so to speak, of basically, let's do this one big movie, like you were saying, the one big nut. It'll make all this money and kind of trickle down and pay for the rest of these movies. No. Now you're really going to have to invest in a bunch of these smaller movies, and get the quality up so that they can stand on their own, because you're not going to have that tent pole anymore. The budget's not going to be there, and they're not going to make all that money, like you said, like they used to,
Right.
Yeah.
And I wonder, and I'm going to let you go, D.I., and I wonder if we might see, if that happens, if we start to see a shift from all of this IP-focused feature filmmaking, where everything has to be an adaptation from something else.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good point, man. I think that's exactly where I was headed with my line of statements next, was that it's exactly where it's going to go, man. The democratization continues, right? So you're going to have more first-time IPs making its way to major networks. I mean, they're going to buy into it, man, because they see what Netflix is doing. They see what Amazon's doing. and they see that those are your two major like new content producers, man. I mean, everybody else is going to be. Does Amazon produce new content? Yeah, they do. They have Amazon Originals, and so
original content. Yeah,
right. And so does Netflix. So those two are your major circuses, man. Everybody else is trying to catch up because everybody else is. The only thing HBO could do, the only thing that DC could, only thing Marvel and Warner Brothers and Disney could do would be to take some of their new movies that are on the horizon being produced and put them out in the manner they're putting them in to be able to be competitive with these guys, because they're losing it. When you think Netflix is putting all this stuff out for free with the subscription, and same thing with other companies like Disney, you don't think that's happening for free, all they could do is put their roster out there and get the exposure they're going to get from it, because they have no choice. They've been forced into a situation they can't control. So I mean, for me, I mean, it's win-win for us as consumers, and for the producers. I'm sorry, but there's going to be a greater scrutiny on the projects now. But then there'll be more opportunities for more projects now as well. So I think that the tide rises and raises all boats. So I think it's a good thing, ultimately. I've got no problem. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, man. I do see, like Prince said, man, cream, get on top. It's gonna rise regardless, man. You have to, as a producer, you have to decide whether you want to be, part of the new changes, which means sometimes sacrificing your own internal, your own internal vision to get production under control or under the way. You know what I mean? Or do you want to just wait it out and see what you can do on your own? But I'll say this too, man. The way technology is now, you don't need a bunch of people to see you. I mean, all you need is just those that can put you in a position of make you comfortable enough to be able to produce what you want to produce, and they accept it as such. So it's back to the selling tapes out of your trunk again, man. And
I don't know about that, but
what I'm saying is this, Adrian. What I'm saying is this, man. The technology now, man. Honestly, you get the right people with technical skills. They can build you anything you need for a major blockbuster at a fraction of the price of what the studios are currently paying for it. You know what I mean? I mean, Unreal Engine. That's all I need to say. Unreal Engine. That's Mandalorian, man. They do all that on the soundstage. All those backgrounds are built digitally. They switch them around by moving the screens around. It's all it's all self-contained. You get a good actor, you get a good script, and it's all self-contained. So you don't need a soundstage that's 1,000 or 4,000 by 5,000 square feet, or the case may be, or 100,000 by 100,000 square feet. You don't need that anymore, man. It's all self-contained. Yeah. So and you cut down on space, you cut down on bodies. You cut down on bodies. Well, the pay scales can dwindle. You just need your skilled artisans in place, like Ed Wood back in the day.
Sure.
I like wearing cashmere sweaters, but no, you just get them in place, man, and they could do the job for you, man. And honestly, I mean, I've seen some things, man, that I wouldn't know the difference between, and I'm very, very particular and to level of specificity about seeing the little imperfections and stuff. If I can't see it, I don't think as many others that are just looking at it practically from I'm going to enjoy this movie type situation can see it.
I have to agree with you, D. Watching Mandalorian, it is like $100 million movie every week.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks fantastic. The last episode that was directed by Robert Rodriguez with Boba in it.
Yeah, man.
Those flying robots looked fucking awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
I mean, just incredible. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Prince earlier, and I'm wondering, and Adrian, I'm wondering what you think about this too, in terms of innovation to get people involved in the theater experience, or some of the things the studios may try to do to try to create more revenue. Because obviously, if someone pays for a service, if you pay $12.99 a month for HBO Max or whatever it is, it's kind of like that. What was that? That Ponzi scheme movie thing where you pay paid so much per month you could go see all the new movies you wanted. What was that?
I don't remember that. It sounds too good to be true.
No, well, it was around for maybe about a year. Anyway, the point is they, do you guys think that they're going to try to come up with other ways to make money in terms of merch and toys? I mean, they're already macking that stuff out, or to maybe come up with tie-ins. Prince, back in the day when he left Warner Brothers, who was his parent label, or the label that signed him, rather, I should say. He did a tour called Musicology. I forget what year it was, but for the tour, he had his own record label. He was doing his music himself. So he announced a Musicology tour. He said, "This is going to be the jukebox tour. I'm going to play everything you want to hear, every hit song, everything." Right.
Right.
So of course the tour sells out instantly.
Right.
But what he did is he put a CD and attached it to every ticket.
Oh.
So every ticket sold was a CD sold.
Oh.
And he went like 3 times platinum just off of that.
Brilliant.
So
yeah, man.
So as a tie-in, I'm wondering if they're going to try to come up with other ways to try to make money. That's one. Two. And a movie like Tenet is a bad example because obviously, there was no merch. I mean, there's no David Washington action figures coming out.
Right.
And Christopher Nolan could probably give a shit about that sort of thing.
Right.
But I just wonder if they are going to try to come up with other ways to try to make money, or even for the theater going experience. We already have like these draft houses and these restaurants, but usually for places like that, at least the ones that I've been to, the food is pretty bland and shitty. And it's just like, okay, so I almost wonder, like, coming up with a better version of that. In other words, like, okay, now, not that this food is great, but, now you can go get Chili's, authentic Chili's food at the theater, or Applebee's,
right,
or, fucking Olive Garden, or,
right,
or whatever, Ruth's Chris, just whatever, where you see, okay, now there's more, because what happens is now it is an experience to go out and have dinner and see a movie, but have a real nice dinner and see a movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
What do you guys think?
Man, I mean, honestly, that was the thing I liked about going to the movie theater. Besides seeing the movie itself and the ambiance and the sound system, the clarity of the speakers and not having just a sound bar in front of you, was I liked the idea of getting some of the condiments and things around there, dude. I love their little deep fried rolls and things like that, man. I would get those, and that was part of the experience. Now here's the thing though. When I'm watching the movie, so I'm gobbling those bad boys up during the first part of the intermission in the trailers and stuff before the actual movie comes out. So I'm eating that stuff, hand them before, and I'm finishing that before. Cause I'm not gonna be distracted by, missing a piece of food from my mouth and hitting my chin with it to watch the movie. That's the choice that I make. When I go to see a movie, I want to see a movie. I don't want to be passing popcorn or sipping, soda and all that stuff. I want to be watching the movie. That's what I came for. So, to me, dinner movie, I never quite got the dinner movie thing. I get it. It's two for one, and it's kind of like it's a nice thing to watch at the same time. But if I'm watching a movie for the first time, I want to see the movie in its entirety without being interrupted.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. There will be sort of things, too, man, that will definitely they'll try to do. Like Regal is good for that. Like, I'm part of the Regal Cinemas Club. I've been that way for years. Just by scanning the card or whatever, you get little, 1,000 points here or there. You can get a T-shirt or whatever the case may be. And they have the movie posters set up, and they can auction that off for a certain amount of credits you may get from it. So little things like that may be little perks they may do to get you involved or make you want to do either come back to the movie theater or give reasons to stay on a service. Like for example, I know back to Mulan again. Some people did pay for that. Some people did pay to see it, when it first came out.
Oh yeah.
And that's that's a whole stair step of revenue for them that people have to have right away. They may start doing that to you. Like instead of being able to see it when it first comes out to try to compensate for the fact that not seeing the movie theaters, they may actually, if you want to see it, before everybody else, you got to pay that extra amount of money, and then later on down the line, we'll lower the price again to eventually becomes Like the retail way of doing things. We charge you $15 for something that's going to actually cost us $5, and by the time it gets closer towards the season, it comes back down to the regular price, and after the season it goes to the discount price. So that may be the model they choose to adapt to. And for some I'll do that. Mostly I won't though. So that's where I am with it.
What do you think, Adrian?
Well, I had the thought of, how back in the day, like, back in the 40s, and I'd say that it really hit its height probably in the 50s and 60s, where you did have like these big budget, relatively, entertainments. And when you went to the theater, part of the incentive of going is that you would get like a special program, that you could take home with you, like a keepsake or something like that.
Right.
So you would have to find some way to incentivize people to come to the theater. If you aren't offering those extras, with like that home release or that, streaming release, at least kind of reward the people who are making the trek out to the theater with something that they can take with them.
Tangible.
Like be it a program or something, a T-shirt, something. Really make that experience special, that they are getting out of their house and actually coming there to see this movie, And I think that could be a way to, really get people to come to the theater. They know that, hey, you can kind of train them in the opposite way, to really get, this full experience of not just the movie and the regular things of food or whatnot, but maybe to get this program, this playbill, this special, T-shirt, or you can even have like a Funko Pop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you come see this movie, you will get a special Funko Pop. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Of, like the next Deadpool movie or whatever. Here's a special edition Funko Pop that you can get just by going to see Deadpool 3 or what have you. You have to give people a reason to get out the house and come to the theater, man. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, to buttress what you're saying, Adrian, that's exactly when we go to Best Buy. The first release of say the what was that, J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, Fellowship or Two Towers, one of the two. I got a statue of Gollum to go along with it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So where's my Gollum at when I go to the movie theater? Where's my posable? Where's my posable Taskmaster?
Fully articulated Gollum, yo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we want it. Yeah,
that's it. Precious.
You know what? As it relates to that, I didn't think about it until you guys started talking. But if you updated those ideas to modern day, the equivalent of that could be something like, and this just hit me. So let's say you have a big movie like an Avengers or something. Let's say they relaunch Avengers and there's 7 big stars in it, and they say, okay, look, as an incentive to get people back in the theaters, to get people buying tickets and butts in seats, the stars are going to make appearances in theaters but unannounced.
Yeah.
So, they're going to be 2 of the Avengers stars in Atlanta, 2 of them in New York, 2 in LA, 2 in Chicago. And they're going to randomly show up at theaters and, at the end of the movie, a microphone, and they'll talk to the crowd. And so, just as something, as a way. And also if they or whatever, and they could add that to the actors' junket, part of their junket commitment is you have to show up in the theaters. And depending upon how their back ends are structured, it's more incentive for them to want to do it. If this is, okay, look, if this will get more people to see my movie, then I'm willing to, to do this work. So I don't know. It's interesting, but I know what you're saying, Adrian, is the idea of specific keepsakes. I remember when I was a kid going to concerts, like, went to see Earth, Wind & Fire, and my sister went to see the Jackson 5 and then the Jacksons, and she would get these, these really specific concert programs with exclusive photos, and all this memorabilia as takeaways from the experience. And she kept all that stuff for years and years. She may even still have it.
Yeah.
But I remember those kind of being things that people would use, or that promoters would use, to entice people to come. And they would charge an arm and a leg for it. They wouldn't give you that stuff, but so be it. I've mentioned Christopher Nolan a couple of times, and he was quoted in the Hollywood Reporter after the Warner Brothers announcement. And this is him, quote, he says, some of our industry's biggest filmmakers and most important movie stars went to bed the night before thinking they were working for the greatest movie studio and woke up to find out that they were working for the worst streaming service. And Nolan's Nolan's relationship with Warner Brothers goes back to like 2002 with Insomnia. But he said, yeah, Warner Brothers had an incredible machine for getting filmmakers' work out everywhere, both in theaters and in the home, and they are dismantling it as we speak. They don't even understand what they're losing. Their decision makes no economic sense, and even the most casual Wall Street investor can see the difference between disruption and dysfunction. End quote. Now, to some extent, I understand his frustration because he is kind of a snob. He's kind of a cinema snob.
Right.
And also, too, he's an older guy. So, you know, there's a very famous video of David Lynch talking about, you're watching a movie on your phone, on your fucking phone? And that's kind of what Nolan sort of sounds like. Because the reality is the theaters have to make money.
Yeah.
The studios have to make money, but the studios have got to, at some point, look out for their own interests. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, Nolan was the one that pressed Warner Brothers to release Tenet, and it underperformed. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they may never make a great deal of money off of that movie, and it's partially his fault. It just wasn't the right time.
You know,
but,
good.
Go ahead. You know, Go ahead.
You know, honestly, man, I saw all the pre-press for Tenet. I saw all the magical, wonderful trailers and things like that. I didn't think it was going to do well in the first place, to be honest with you, bro. I don't care who the star power was in it. It just wasn't cinematically. Whoever put the trailer together for it, they didn't do it. I mean, it didn't draw me in. Like when I first saw Bourne, I was like, okay, Bourne's like, oh shit, he just did that. I saw nothing in Tenet and said, he just did that. You know, it was. You know, it was not that it was a bad movie. I didn't see it, and I'm not poo-pooing anybody that made it. But I'm just saying, in terms of like, you can't have people that overrate your ability, man, to the point to where you think you're capable of failing, and you can't have people in place that aren't going to tell you the truth about your situations, man. And that's what. Go ahead.
Well, I want to interrupt. Keep in mind now, even though he may not be your cup of tea, Christopher Nolan is one of the few named directors that can actually sell a movie.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that trailer that I saw. I don't know. Okay. I don't care who's behind it. If the trailer I saw was dynamic to me, it didn't get me. Right. I was like, okay, why am I interested in this? You know, that was my point. Yeah, I mean, Nolan's got an impeccable box office degree, man. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of his films, but I just didn't see it as being a valid risk in terms of what it was, how it was different from anything else that was currently out or been out before it. You know?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it feels that way. I mean, I think the way instead of complaining about the way things are, man, how about do something different to make it different? You know what I mean? Like, okay, we see, it's a pandemic situation here. Okay, you can either crawl up in your little cubby hole and think that things are going to be the same way they're going to be before this thing happened, or you can adapt and try to figure out what's next.
Right.
You know? Let me do some series with Tenet. How about do some shorts that you can put on WB that's interesting and engaging with that character and or scenario, and have people ready to gear up for the next installment that's going to be a big blockbuster. How about that?
Well, that's because I am Christopher Nolan and I believe in cinema.
Okay, well, either way you go, man. You know, cinema is cinema, bro. I mean, people. Right. I don't give a
peace.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan kind of fancies himself as the David Lean of this generation.
David Lean,
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, David Lean, the director of Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge on over the River Kwai, Dr. Zhivago. Like, just made a lot of those extravagant, classic movies, those classic epics. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's a perfect comparison.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
that's what I get from Nolan. It's like he believes in cinema because he's had those previous successes. So why would it not continue? You know, but however, Lean came into the same realization, if you ask me. There was, I think his last movie was A Passage to India in like 84, if I'm not mistaken. And everyone was expecting, oh, it's David Lean. He's making another epic again. Oh, boy. You know what I'm saying? We were expecting Lawrence of Arabia again, Dr. Zhivago, Bridge Over the River Kwai, Great Expectations. And it just was not it, you know? And it had all the ingredients that you would expect from a David Lean movie, but it just didn't do it. Same thing with Nolan. Previous successes of the Batman, you know, movies, Inception, Dunkirk, so somewhat, you know what I'm saying? And so why wouldn't he expect Tenet to not perform as well? You know, but when it didn't, something's wrong with the industry. And it's not me. It's the industry. You know what I'm saying? And he just can't come to the realization. And there are going to be a lot of other creatives, like big wig creatives. The only one who's probably going to be unscathed out of this, for the most part, be somebody like who's so high up it don't matter, like Spielberg or like Spielberg. You know, it's like what? Oh, okay, y'all fighting over that little cheese right there. Whatever, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? He's the one that's really gonna be. Like, he's the one that's just gonna be unscathed, yo. Like, not care, because he's like, he truly is the master of the universe. You know, he's like the one who's like, exactly, Spielberg. But that's what I'm saying. See, and like you said earlier, D, the paradigm is shifting. It's shifting as we speak, as the industry is moving. You know, and a lot of these directors who were able to call their own shots before because they had those previous successes, now they've got to readjust themselves, and actors too. Like, think about your Tom Cruises. We were speaking of back-end deals. He has back-end deals for every movie. Every movie. Yeah, and that's why he goes out and does the promotion that you were mentioning too, Swizz. Like, Tom Cruise will go out across the world, show up at theaters, just be like, I'm here. There's my movie coming out. Ba-dow, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
And Tom,
but even he, go ahead.
Tom consistently.
No, go ahead, man.
Tom consistently, he does fun movies, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you may not agree with his choices in terms of what he does, but his shit's always exciting, bro. Like, every time you see a movie, it's like it's something that's gonna be interesting. And I mean, maybe not totally intellectually part of what he does, but you know, it's just gonna be fun, bro. It's action packed. It's gonna be fun. You know, you're going to see something that you hadn't expected to see. Well, actually, you do expect to see it now from him.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yes, exactly. It's Tom Cruise.
We're on Mission Impossible 8D.
But so my point is that he's a fun person, man, that is engaged in the craft in more than just one level. He's not just there to be a movie star. Even that's what he is. He gives a damn about what he's doing, and he does it well. You know,
he has the reputation for always being willing to do the junket and to do the press for, like, he'll do out and he'll sell the movie as hard as he has to. That's just one of the things that he is kind of known for. But I don't know. To some extent, I think Adrian is correct. Certainly in its comparison with comparing Lean to Nolan, although. Spielberg is equally critical of streaming, and he doesn't consider it to be real movies. And you know, a streaming movie is a television movie. It's not a feature. It's not cinema. You know, I'm putting words in his mouth, but he's in effect making that comparison. But did you guys know, just off topic, a slight tangent? Did you guys know that Steven Spielberg's back end deal on Jurassic Park, he made $250 million?
Damn.
Just on that movie, he made $250 million. Now just think about all the other hot shit he got.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he rocked it in the 70s, the 80s,
yes,
and then again in the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So definitely approaching GOAT status. So the big question now is if other studios follow suit, and the way it looks now, as far as the U.S. is concerned, I know there are people around the world who may hear this podcast. You know, we may not get the full vaccine until June of next year. They're saying, you know, into the spring.
Yeah.
Because the White House passed, you know, they only ordered like 100 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine, and it has to be given twice. And you have to have at least 100 million people inoculated in order for any kind of vaccine affected herd immunity to kick in. So we may be talking about, you know, this going into the spring to summer of next year. So could this be, and I think it kind of could be, could this be the end of the theater going experience as we know it? That's one big question. Mentioned earlier, people own big TVs now, and so the ease of seeing something in the comfort of your home is just way too tempting to pass up. But there are other industries that went the way of the dodo bird, other industries in other technologies, record stores, cable and satellite as a way to get media into your home. Photo development, Dee knows about that intimately. Movie rentals. Video stores, porn on video and on disc. Porn is on the internet now, and what did the porn industry do? They didn't lose money, or they didn't boo-hoo about people are pirating our movies and putting them on Pornhub or whatever.
Actually,
they focused. Well, they did, but then they turned around. But they innovated. They turned around and they focused on merch. They focused on dildos and anal butt beads and other things.
Wow.
Because you can't download a dildo. You can't stream a dildo. You know what I'm saying?
That sounds like a.
And on that note, no, but
the newspaper industry, large scale recording studios. People can make an album on a laptop now. They do.
Yeah.
Vinyl albums, cassettes, CDs, MP3s. People don't even want MP3s anymore. I don't want to litter my hard drive with that shit anymore. Just let me pay for access to hear it. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
DVDs, cruises, travel agencies, restaurants, newsstands. You know, the idea of leaving somewhere for dinner and stopping by a newsstand and getting a magazine or paper is gone. People don't do that anymore. Bookstores, paper mills. So there's just a ton of them. And so, again, do you guys think, as we know it, do you think this could be the end of the theater-going experience?
I mean, yeah. I mean, as we know it, it's a wrap. But I mean, in terms of like, will it totally go out forever? No. It's gonna be a high-end ticket item that people will go to for the experience. A lot like actual theater. People go to see Broadway plays.
Gotcha.
And there'll be merch to compensate to go along with it. The people will go and get specialized booklets and pamphlets and toys and dildos and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my!
Oh my!
You know, I mean, it's gonna be that kind of thing. You know, it's just what it is. I still have people that come in now, believe it or not, in the digital age. They want to process film, and they do it knowing it takes a month to get back to them. So, you know, people are based on their own personal experiences. They're based on their own particular ideals of doing something. They will continue to do it until it's no longer available to them. So when it becomes available to them again, like as I said, you know, I will see Dune when it comes out on television, but I will see Dune with my friends when it goes to the theaters, providing that it's at the right time and that we have enough vaccine in place to where if I get sick, I have access to it. You know, so I mean, because I enjoy the theater going experience. I enjoy it with my friends. I enjoy getting together and having conversations afterwards about it. Yeah, we can Skype until we turn blue in the face or Zoom in the face, but it doesn't take the place of the human condition, the human nature. You know, not for me. Now for your children, for Skylar and Adrian's daughters, man, I mean, they're a whole other generation that's been born, and they don't have the same attraction or lock-in that we do to things. So, but for us, it's it's human, So.
Yeah. What do you think, A?
I think I kind of agree with D in that I think it's going to turn into like a boutique type of experience, like how
I agree.
Like you mentioned in your listing of By God, you mentioned DVDs. Out of my frustration of not being able to watch stuff that I want to watch, I scour the bins for DVDs. Oh man, and don't let me find. I have so many in my collection that I have two of. There's one where I found where it's just the DVD itself, just the movie, one of my favorite movies. But then I'll find another one down the line with all these great features on it, and I'll get that one too.
Yeah,
because it's just that boutique experience. D, you mentioned about people wanting to get film processed, even though they know that it's going to take so long for it to get back. But to them, it's worth it because the final result is worth it. They're worth investing in that boutique industry now for that return. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with like bookstores. Comic book stores are already there, to where you want this experience and it becomes a niche, So I think movie theater going is going to become a niche. And hopefully that niche is filled with, in my book, I think they should fill it with like classic movies too. It's not enough of that out there. If you're going to have pay screens to where we can only see these classic movies on streaming, why don't you do the same for like these movie theater screens that are probably now not going to be as available or filled in these megaplexes? Maybe devote some of the megaplexes to, what do they call it? What do they call that? Not just classic movies. There's a term for it.
I know what you're talking about.
Revival houses.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Do like revival houses. Yeah, because that's what you were talking earlier, Swizz, about the Alamo Draft House. Stuff like that. That's what they do. They show older movies. Yeah. And they do pretty good. Because there's an audience out there for it. It's not your mainstream audience, but it's the same audience that still buys DVDs, that still gets film processed, that still read like physical books. It's the same audience,
Yeah. Man, I mean, I agree with you, man. There's a this past, I guess, in November there was a movie theater house. A movie house in California that showed like all the old Star Wars movies, and that's what they did.
See,
so that there's definitely an audience for it, and there's definitely a place for it. It's a question of like, will people still go back to the movies to see regular movies when this whole pandemic is no longer a real focus? And I have to say, I believe human nature is yes.
I think both of you guys are right. I do think that this announcement by Warner Brothers is a game changer. I think we are seeing a tectonic shift happening right before our eyes of going from what was to what could be as far as the future is concerned, and how we engage with with feature films and with with theater and with cinema. And I do think you guys are correct. I have it here in my notes. I actually wrote down that, this is probably going to mean no more megaplexes. Megaplexes were created so that we could watch, not so you could go to the movies. It was so you could go to the movies and so you could see Titanic or the Avengers on 15 different screens. But if the focus moves away from those big, huge movies in the future, we may go back to, like you guys said, smaller boutique movie theaters, specialized, places that are really classy and classic, with lots of, wood and dark carpet and curtains. And so you get that, and you go there for that. Now, is there enough vinyl being sold today to the hipsters that want it to really support it as an industry? Not really.
Right.
Not really. But, and so, who knows if that'll be the case with these theaters, moving forward. Like you said, if a theater has smaller overhead, then they can do a revival week, or they can do something else, or they can have a room where they have just classic movies, or I imagine they can do more. And also too, if they're not like super corporate owned places like AMC or Regal or something like that.
Yeah.
And they will be called View Easies.
View Easies.
They check your temperature at the door and make sure you're COVID-19 or COVID-20 or 21 not carrying it, and yeah, man. I gotta tell you, man, this is my own personal experience, and it's faulty because of it. Honestly, when I first saw Avengers, man, at the end of the first Avengers movie, when Thanos comes on the screen, I lost my shit, as I know Swizz did too. And
sure.
You can't replace a moment like that by watching it in front of the television screen for the first time. That just doesn't play the same way. Me looking at some stranger and both of us understanding, not knowing each other, that's what we're experiencing, and these other guys don't know what's going on. That cannot be replaced, man, by a television screen. It can't be.
Well,
go ahead.
It's well. I don't mean to interrupt you. Finish your thought.
That's all to say about it. I mean, it's that human condition, that human need for being around people of a like-minded situation, like going to conventions. It's the same thing. We go to conventions to meet other people like ourselves, to experience the immersion in the subject matter, to enjoy each other's company, and to really get involved in that moment of creation, man. The same as when I go to movie theaters, a moment of escapism. You can't escape the same way by going into your room and going into your movie theater in your house, wherever it is you do to watch a movie. I mean, yeah, you see the same thing, but the experience is just not the same. Not for dudes like us, not of our age brackets.
No, you're not wrong, man. Because like I think I mentioned this before on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm not a sports fan, but on the few occasions where I have gone to baseball games or football games, you do get caught up in it because of the group and the cheering, and people are happy and they're supporting their teams.
Exactly.
And and people are drinking beer and eating popcorn and hot dogs, and and you see the performance on the field, so you do get caught up in it. And likewise, that does happen with a movie theater, because if something is funny, it's much funnier in a room full of people than it is just by yourself. If something is surprising or scary or thrilling, all of those things are heightened by the communal experience of a couple hundred people all in the same room together, having that same emotion at the same time. I would agree with you. I would agree with you there. But I think again, it just depends on how important is that to people. How important is that to future generations?
Right.
The things that are important to us and the things that are important to our parents and grandparents may not be important to our children and the people that follow us. So I do agree with you there. And it's not dissimilar to what you hear comedians say about doing stand-up comedy, that stand-up comedy should be experienced in the club live. And I can attest to this, and maybe you guys can as well. Something is just funnier. A joke that the comedian tells is funnier when you're there and he's telling it or she's telling it to you in front of you with a crowd. It's just funnier.
Yeah.
You'll find yourself, slapping your knee and, and rocking back and forth and running up and down the aisles. You'll find yourself doing all that stuff when you're in person. But I do agree with what Dee said, his initial point very early on in the conversation, that this announcement by Warner Brothers could really represent real change, real paradigmatic change, to how we watch movies and what we think about movies and what we think about going to the theater. And I'm really curious to kind of see, what the, how it's all going to shake. How it's going to shake out. So.
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrienne Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Sidebar Forever is copyright 2020. Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrienne Johnson.